What a powerful moment we just shared. Well, anyway, right now we're going to do my Give a Damn's Busted by Carolyn Brown book review. This is part 2. This is the stopping point for tonight. I know y'all are like going, no, you can't stop. We want to know what happens next. Well, you can always pick up this book, I'm sure, at a bookstore, your local library, but you definitely don't want to miss out on a moment from this book. So if you don't see me tomorrow night, which there's a good chance you won't, have no fear, we'll pick up the following night. But page 50 is where we left off. Hank poked his head around the corner. You talking to that cat or to me? She jumped. There she sat in her sweating glory, barefoot, hair like a funky rocker from the 90s, dirty, smelling like a bag lady who hadn't seen a shower in a month. She consoled herself by deciding that if Hank Wells was a real cowboy, then he'd seen sweaty working women before in his life. If he wasn't, then there was something fishy about him anyway. He don't give me much sass, and he don't carry gossip. Are you stalking me? No, ma'am. I was drinking through town. I can't even read now. I was driving through town and saw you in the garden a while ago. When I came back through, I noticed you sitting on the porch. I thought I'd stop by and make sure you hadn't found any hidden bruises. The telephone in the house rang, and she ignored it. I'm fine. How are you? The seatbelt bruise was about gone. Want some iced tea or a beer? She asked. Beer sounds good on a hot day like this, he answered. Sweat stains circled his faded chambray shirt that hung open, baring his broad chest. His old truck was both windows rolled down, so evidently the air conditioning didn't work. His jeans had stuck to his legs, and his boots were scuffed at the toes. I'd been hauling hay with my dad. A friend of his down there in these parts only needed a few little bales, so I hauled them down here on the back of the flatbed out there. Air conditioner went out in it years ago, but damned old engine is like a engine. I'm just so sorry. Energizer bunny. It refuses to die. Sounds like hot work. Have a seat over on the porch underneath the shady part. I'll be right back, she said. She refilled her jar and pulled a cold beer from the refrigerator, popped the cap off, and stood at the kitchen window a few seconds staring at his back. It was thoughtful of him to check on her. A friend would do that, and Larissa liked friends. She gathered around her to mingus. There was always room for one more, and Hank seemed lonely. Maybe he was looking for friendship too. She picked up her tea and his beer, carried both out to the porch. He'd taken his straw hat off and was fanning himself with it. Stallone watched warily from the edge of the garden. That's the cat. Her heart skipped 2 beats and then set about trying to thump out of her chest when she saw him sitting there with the sweat pouring down the back of his sunburned neck. Black hair flattened against his head, and those light brown eyes were looking up at her. When did I begin to like working cowboys? My preference in men never did include tight jeans, belt buckles, straw hats. That's why I figured I was safe from the honky-tonk curse, is what she's thinking. He tilted the bottle up, enjoyed the long, wet drink. Thank you, this hits the spot. Nothing like a cold beer on a hot Texas day. 50-51, and here comes 52-53. He nodded toward the plot with the knee-high corn, okra, beans, and tomato plants. So you making a garden? Trying to. It's my first attempt. Mingus doesn't offer Gold's Gym, so gardening is my exercise. Plus I get food from my efforts. That has no preservation and tastes much better than store-bought, she said. God, please shut my mouth. I sound like a commercial for natural fertilizer, she's thinking. My dad makes a garden every year. Hated picking beans when I was a kid, but I love the food, he said. She liked him. Yes, he was sexy as hell, but it went beyond that. He picked beans for heaven's sake, and he liked garden fresh food. He stopped by just to see if she was all right. That could easily translate into a good friend, if nothing else. The phone rang on no amount of ignoring it made it hush. Guess I better get that. Excuse me, she said, and she took her time getting into the kitchen in hopes that whoever was so persistent would give up, but it didn't work. She'd far rather be out on the porch in the hot, steaming sun getting to know Hank better than talking to anyone she knew on the blasted telephone. She picked up the cordless receiver and walked to the kitchen window where she could look her fill of him as she talked. "Hello," she said impatiently. "Larissa Morley, please," a masculine voice said. "This is Larissa. Whatever you're selling, I'm not interested." She started to hang up. He began talking very fast. "Miss Morley, I'm not a salesman. I'm not trying to give you credit cards or sell you stock in a timeshare. This is Wayne Johnston. I work for the Radnor Incorporated." "Who?" she said icily. "Radnor Incorporated. We would like to arrange a meeting to discuss buying the Honky Tonk beer joint from you. We have come up with—" "Hush right there. I'm not selling the business. Get that through your head once and for all, and don't call here ever again. I don't give a damn if you offer to me a third world country in exchange for the tonk. It's not for sale," she said. "But—" "No buts or badonkadonks." That's the end of the discussion. Mr. Wayne Johnston of Radnor Incorporated. "Miss Morley, if you live in a rundown house and work 6 nights a week in a cheap beer joint, I'm willing to offer you enough money for a much better lifestyle. Why won't you sell it to me?" "You may squat in a bed of poison ivy and fall backwards in it, Mr. Johnston. How do you know where I live or who I am? And why do you want it so bad? Have you been stalking me? Well, darling, you can damn sure come around, and I'll tell you the same thing to your face. And why doesn't your Hayes Radnor come to see me in person if he wants my business so badly? Is he a sissy that hides behind his big business? If he wants my business, tell him to come talk to me in person. Is there a gold hiding underneath my beer joint or something?" That was 52, 53, and here comes 54 and 55. Mr. Johnston tone turned icy cold. "Mr. Radnor is a busy man. No, there isn't any oil under the beer joint. Radnor Corporation wants it to incorporate into their amusement park. We will own the town eventually. Don't get too damn comfortable in owning Mingus is the thing that's going to write your paycheck. You might find yourself moving from the penthouse to the outhouse. Goodbye, and don't harass me again." She slammed the receiver down with enough force that she hoped it give him a major migraine. She inhaled deeply, and several times before she went back out to the porch. Hank sat on the empty bottle on the porch step. Stallone slowly inched over towards the porch and sniffed the tip of Hank's boot. "I think he's trying to decide whether to trust me or not," Hank said. And in her mind, she's thinking, "So am I. My flight mode tells me to run away, but this blasted heat between us, creating sparks that are hotter than a barbed wire fence in the middle of the hell, says to stick around. Slow down, girl. Easy does it. He might turn out to be involved with someone else and only interested in friendship, like Luther." She sat down, pulled her knees up. "Folks say that you can't fool kids or dogs. I don't know if that includes cats or not. My dad has a barn full of cats. When I came out to the ranch as a kid, I loved it when there was a bunch of kittens out there. I used to name them. One year they were Sesame Street characters. Then they were race car characters from a cartoon I liked. Then I got old enough for a pony, and the kittens took a back seat." "Be careful, Stallone. He's a fickle friend. Man that would turn his back on kittens for a danged old pony can't be trusted," Larissa warned the cat. "Is that voice of experience I'm hearing?" Hank grinned. "It is. We had kittens, and when I got my pony, I'm afraid I was a fickle friend, too." She smiled at the memory of her first pony her grandfather bought her home. The cat stuck his tail straight up and strutted back to the garden, where he laid down and eyed Hank from a distance. Hank smiled. "Looks like he's the one who's fickle. He was warming up to me until he heard about the pony. I won't tell him that you would trade him in for a horse if you got the chance." She giggled. "He hasn't got a thing to worry about. I'm past the love of horses in my life. It only lasted a few weeks anyway. First time the critter bucked me off into a mud puddle, I was finished with him. Cats don't treat you like that." "I'm glad to see you laugh. You looked like you could chew up the railroad spikes and spit out staples when you came out from that phone call. I hope it wasn't bad news." "Not at all. A telemarketer trying to buy something that's not for sale and never will be." The smile vanished, and her tone turned from that toasty warm to frigid. Hank cocked his head to one side. "That's strange. Most telemarketers are trying to sell, not buy." That's page 54, 55, and here comes 56 and 57. "Some fool from Dallas has been trying to buy the honky tonk for a couple years now. Guess he thought since ownership has changed that he'd have a chance at it. Idiot doesn't realize that I'd have less of a reason to sell than any previous of the 3 owners, but that's not important. I told him no, and now it's over. Sorry sucker thought he could sweet-talk me into a deal by offering me a fortune. Radnor Corporation ought to fire his sorry butt. If that's the best they got, then they ain't got much. Why would you have less reason to sell it? He asked. His conscience was yelling at him to fess up and be honest with the woman, but he shoved it away. Ruby Lee built it, and she wouldn't sell it because it was her baby. She wouldn't have sold it to God for a front row seat in heaven. Daisy wouldn't because she didn't give a damn about the money. Kathy wouldn't because she didn't need the money. I won't because it's where my heart found a home. That whole bunch of Radnors, he be it 2 or 50, can kiss my naturally born stubborn butt. I see, Hank chuckled. Well, I reckon I better get back to the truck or Dad will be sending out the military. I'm surprised that he even let me drive another one of his vehicles after that deer accident. He's got a soft spot for every one of his old trucks. So much for sweet-talking her or befriending her into selling the honky-tonk. He'd have to find out more about her and see if there was anything else in the world that would make her give it up. I understand completely. I got a soft spot for my beer joint, she said. Come back if you're in these parts. Me and Stallone don't venture out very far in the daytime. I've always got a cold beer and iced tea, but if you ever preach any nonsense to Stallone that involves trading him in for a horse, she hesitated. You will what? His eyes twinkled. You don't even want to know, she said. Patsy Cline was singing, and the dance floor was filled with two-stepping when Luther shut down the doors behind Hank and the night the honky-tonk. Evening, Hank, Luther said. Looks like the business is hopping. I was lucky to get in, wasn't I? Hank said. Yes, those behind you will have to wait until someone leaves. We're at max capacity. She really don't dance with customers. She ain't just being mean to you. Thought I'd clear that up, Luther said. That's good. Hank waved as he cut around the edges of the hardwood dance floor. Tammy Wynette was singing, Your good girl's gonna go bad. When he claimed the last empty bar stool, was Larissa a good girl or a bad girl? Hank would gladly help her go bad if she gave him half a chance. He tried to keep the job in perspective, but he kept seeing her in those short-off jeans every time he blinked. Merle gave him a long look. So you came back. Why didn't you bring Henry? Page 56, 57, 58, and 59. Hank came back to the present with a jerk. He wondered when she had sat down beside him, or she'd been there the whole time, and he sat down beside her. Larissa had definitely gotten under his skin. He was tired. He hasn't gotten the stamina to put up hay all day and dance with all night any more, he answered. Merle smiled and leaned over at him. Old age, gravity, and time gets us whether we like it or not. Tessa, this here is the son of an old friend of mine, Ruby Lee's. Remember I told you about her? Well, this is Hank Wells, his son. I didn't even know he had a son till last night. Tessa smiled brightly. So you dance, cowboy? Afraid I've got 2 left feet, he said. Too bad, but everyone has one fault. Guess yours is that you haven't got rhythm. See that big old bouncer back there, big as he is? He's light on his feet when I can talk him into dance, which is what I'm about to do. Do you want to shoot some pool? He shook his head. Guess you're just eye candy then. Tessa hopped off the stool and motioned to Luther to dance with her to an old Bill Anderson tune. Tessa was a brunette with green eyes that were even bigger through the lenses of her big black-rimmed glasses. She had rounded hips that were slightly larger than the top half of her body, but there were no sparks when she touched his arm as she was leaving. Not a single vibe shot through his veins like it did when Larissa handed him a beer and touched his fingertips. Evening, Hank, Larissa said. The attraction she had for that man heated up insides until they were little more than conglomerate of aching desires. What can I get you? Larissa, he nodded. His mouth went so dry he craved a beer worse than he had been dancing for an hour. How about a romp in the hay, he's thinking, or at least a long lingering taste of those lips is what he's also thinking. He roped his way in with those wayward thoughts and said, Coors, please. She set a bottle on the paper coaster in front of him. He handed her a bill and deliberately let it fall so they would grab at the same time. When their skin touched, it was as if fire jumped from hell and scorched his palm. It wasn't fair to be attracted to the only woman that he should not look at once more, thus twice, with lust in heart and soul. She owned the beer joint. She lived in a sorry-looking house that was as big as his closet in Dallas. She was his job. The job. So why in the hell did he want to take her to bed? Because he's a man. Just saying. Sorry about that, he said hoarsely. Things weren't supposed to happen that way. Who was Larissa Morrisley, and why in the devil wasn't there any more information on her? Hell's bells. His people could find everything on Luther and Merle and even Larissa's friends, Betty, Janice, Linda, and their husbands. He had pages and pages on all of them, from where they were born to what their finances looked like. But prior to Larissa coming to Mingus, there was nothing, and to top it all off, he liked the woman. And she was hard-working and a hoot as to sit and talk to. He could spend the whole week just talking about gardening or cats on her back porch. She shoved her hand into her pockets and let it cool off. Did you get the hay all baled in the barn? 58, 59, and this is 60, 61. The little square bales went into the barn. The big round one stayed in the drying field. You ever done any baling? He asked. You asking me to take on another job? Maybe. You interested? Could be. I like learning new things, she said. Merle shook her head emphatically. Rissa, do not let this cowboy coerce you into baling hay. Girl, that's the hottest, dirtiest work in the world. Larissa smiled shyly. It's okay, Merle. I baled hay one time in my life, and I know how hard the work is. Tell you what, Hank, I'll bale hay for you, but you have to work for me if I do. Doing what? He wiggled his eyebrows. She wiggled her own dark brows. Something really sexy. You interested? I might be. I need someone to help me paint my house. He groaned. I hate to paint. Dad made me paint a barn one summer for punishment. What'd you do? What did you have to do to bale the hay? He asked right back. Touché, Mr. Wells. Someday I might tell you, but tonight I got work to do. So are you going to help me paint or not? How many days for how much painting? He asked. Hour for hour. I'll drive a hay truck or use a pair of hooks to stack the hay, but you have to help me paint an hour for every hour. I help you get the hay from the field to the barn. Merle threw up her hands in disgust. You are both crazy. I'm going to go find someone to whip at 8-ball. I really hate to paint, Hank said. And I really hate to sweat, Larissa said. He inhaled deeply and let it all out in a whoosh. You got lots of beer at your house. Painting is a hell of a lot of hot job. She grinned. Do you have lots of beer at your ranch? Hang is a hell of a lot of hot job. He stuck his hand out over the bar. Starting tomorrow at noon, when the dew is dried. She hesitated so long that he was pulling it back when she reached out and shook with him. Neither was prepared for blistering fire that glued them together. When he let go, she quickly made an excuse to grab a cold bottle of beer to put out the burn in her palm. That was 60 and 61. Page 67 is just a short few paragraphs. Well, me and his son made a deal. He stopped in by to see if I was all right after our little wreck incident, and I think we're going to be pretty good friends. He's been by the honky-tonk a couple of times. I'm going to haul hay, and he's going to help me paint my house. Is he pretty? Janice asked. Larissa placed one hand over her heart and fanned her face with the other. But even better, he's a good old hard-working cowboy. He don't care about impressing a girl with flattery or fancy duds. He's just a plain old Hank, and I like that. Then get out there of here and go all hot and sweaty with that man. Wish I was 35 years younger and I'd go with you. But gravity got my boobs in my butt years ago, Betty said. Larissa could hear them giggling as she backed the car out of the carport. Okay, moving forward, the last two paper clips for the night. Okay, page 84, 85, and 86. Okay, where did we start in at? Excuse me, ma'am, but I could talk to you about after closing time, the lady asked Larissa when she reached the part of the bar where she was waited. Who are you? Larissa asked in a tone so cold that it would have frozen the hair from the devil's ears. The woman wasn't a day over 20. Her had red hair cut short over the ears and no-nonsense style green eyes. She wore a denim mini-skirt, a hot pink tank top stretched over her boobs that were bigger than her hips. The cowboy boots were sharp toes and a walking heel. Charlene Waverly, she answered. Did Hayes Radnor send you in here? Larissa asked. Hank was 2 stools down and leaned forward to listen to when he heard the Radnor name. The ice in Larissa's voice could have brought on a snowstorm right there in the middle of July. No, but I know who he's reputation, Charlene said, and he's from Dallas, and richer than Midas. Hank leaned back and was strained to catch every word. Charlene went on, I know what he's trying to buy, all the land in Mingus for an amusement park that you have a town meeting scheduled, and it looks like Mr. Radnor is going to hit a brick wall. I might incorporate that into my story, but it's not the headline. I work for the Dallas Morning News, and I want to do a feature on the honky tonk. The headline will be Party and Pick Out a Partner. Larissa frowned. What? You are the fourth person to own the honky tonk. Ruby Lee gave it to Daisy and took it a while, but she found her the right soulmate right here and the beer joint. Then she gave it to Kathy, who also found her love here. I want to follow your life for a few months and see if you are the third. Plus there's a Walker triplets, Angel and Garrett, and a numerous others who met and fallen in love in this place. Is it blessed? Charlene asked. More like cursed. Larissa chuckled. Whatever it is, I'd like to shadow you for a while. Would that be possible? Charlene asked. Larissa thought about it for a few seconds before saying, You know how to pull a handle and fill up a mason jar with beer? No, but I could learn. How often are you going to shadow me? Until I get the story. I'm working on my own, and this one's trying to show the boss I've got enough initiative to work out my way of the obits. I get off work on Friday at 5. I could work Friday and Saturday nights, Charlene offered. It's going to be a dud, Larissa said. A what? You ever light firecrackers on the 4th of July? Charlene nodded. Ever light one just fizzled and died? She nodded again. That's a dud. You can shadow me and help behind the bar, but you won't get a story. Hayes Radnor can buy the whole damn state of Texas, but he's not getting my beer joint. Put that in your article and tell him to take the day-old newspaper to the outhouse and wipe his butt with it. Larissa said. When do I start? Charlene asked. Right now. Come on back here and get a handle on your hands. That was 84, 85, and 86. And that's where we stopped tonight. You'll want to stay tuned to find out what happens next. Like I said, I don't know if I will be with you tomorrow night or not. But if I am, you don't want to miss it. So, till next time.